XOXO, got the girl. Pose. Audra at Home is filmed in front of a live Pitbull audience. Good morrow and merry meet. My name is Audra and you are in for a treat. All right, well, I have the dog and also I have wine. And typically when I have wine, we're going to talk about love. I wanted to talk about this because I wanted to. About a year ago, I feel like it was a year ago, you slobbered all over my tea-tot. That's okay. About a year ago, I believe Tiffany Ferg had a video talking about hookup culture, and as someone who is relatively ancient in the eyes of the 20-year-old YouTubers, I wanted to throw in my hat into the proverbial ring. I used a big word. Are we proud of me? I feel like we should be proud of me. Okay, moving on. To start this off, I asked a question on Instagram, which if you're not following me on Instagram, highly suggest it because I ask a lot of interesting questions over there. I feel like I do, and you just never know when some of them might pop up in a video. And this is one of them. And I asked, do you require emotional connection for physical intimacy? And I am keeping the responses private because I can see who answered what, but we're not sharing that. That's not what kind of people we are. But 83% of the respondents said yes, and 17% said no. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I feel like, I don't know if I said that Tiffany Ferg did a video on hookup culture specifically, that's what Tiffany did the video on. And I wanted to talk about this because I feel like my generation, people my age, like the cuspers, especially those of us who are on the cusp of Gen X and millennials, affectionately referred to as zillennials. That sounds disgusting. I really hate it. Can we just not? Because it sounds gross. Just about as gross as Bo licking himself right now, so. But considering I came from that particular generation, I feel like I was very much a part of not even like the birth of hookup culture, but the full acceptance of hookup culture. And what I mean by that is if you had asked me this very question 20 years ago, I would have said like, no, I don't require emotional connection. But the me of today would tell you yes. And it would also say that the 20 years ago me should have also said yes. Based on how I have lived my life so far, it is turning out that yes, I do require that. Ooh, that is a buzzy buzz noise. And so I'm going to just be talking about my opinions. These are not facts, regarding what's going on, because when I first started thinking about this, it was several months ago, because I am a lover of watching TikTok. I am a fan. I enjoy TikTok. Occasionally I make content. It's such a fun time, especially for my ADHD ass. I'm super neurodivergent. I really enjoy just being able to like get content real fast, right? And at first I thought like, oh, it must be just like a few people. But it's not. And my question is, are we as women and femmes just completely divorced of the idea of being in relationships because emotional intimacy has been denied? That's a really long video title. But here's what I'm saying. When 21-year-old me finally did the deed, as I so affectionately call it in my 13-year-old writings. So what I mean by that is when I was, when I finally did the deed, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by Bo licking, when I finally did the deed at 21, I realized very quickly, especially because at the time I thought that I was, I guess, more hetero, or I didn't feel comfortable and confident expressing my full sexuality. But I was, doing the hetero thing. And when I tell you that there were so many expectations of women and femmes to not have an attachment, to be really cool and chill and not ask too many questions, not really say what you want. And basically it was just like this pipeline, I guess. It was like this whole movement, not pipeline. It was an entire movement to stop women and femmes from expressing their wants and needs in relationships to heterosexual men so that they could run muck and figure out what it is that they wanted to do, date and screw everything that they wanted to date and screw, while also still seeing you, so that you did not do those things, but also you remained cool about the fact that they were doing those things. That was a lot to say. Essentially, men wanted to do whatever the hell they wanted to, and they wanted women and femmes to not do that. They wanted us to just sit quietly and not do this. And I remember how annoying it was, because like around that time, the stage 5 clinger started. And as an adult, I now look at that terminology and I'm like, what you mean to say is that a woman or femme presenting to you how they feel and stating their feelings and their boundaries is something that you don't want to deal with. What you want is selfishness. Now, obviously, this goes without saying, it's not all men, but it's way more than I like to think about. And having grown up in that, I learned a very specific way of behaving. I learned that like when you hooked up, quote unquote, you did not spend the night. This was like a cardinal rule that you just did not break. Unless, of course, you were in college, you were too drunk to actually walk your drunk ass home. So then you had to do the walk of shame, which I didn't feel like there was any shame in it. The only shame was like who I had hooked up with. And that was actually far more shameful than I care to talk about. Young Audra, what were you thinking? Anyway, but you could not stay the night. You could not ask questions about what you were. Like the only thing you could really do is be like,
do you have a condom?
And that seemed to be like the end of communication. And it felt like even if you hooked up with the same person multiple times, you had to wait for him to be the one to like broach the subject of moving things forward. You had to sit quietly or else be labeled the stage 5 clinger. You ended up being labeled clingy, crazy, which is a word that I've been removing from my lexicon for this reason. You ended up being labeled as crazy, and looking back on it now, it's because we weren't allowed to steer the boat in a relationship. We very much, as women and femmes, had to just sit dutifully on the boat and like hope that it went in the direction we wanted it to go. And I say all of this because I do feel like now, at the ripe, fabulous gothic age of 41, I realized that now it took a lot of work, a lot of therapy, and a lot of self-reflection to get to this point now where I realized that even in my marriage, I was without a doubt emotionally unavailable by the time I hit, 24, 25. I just wasn't really able to invest fully emotionally. And I feel like a lot of that came from hookup culture. I was expected to be the cool girl, chill, like I'm not causing any problems, but I feel like doing that caused me to shut down an entire part of myself to be cool, to be chill, to be okay with hooking up. It felt very much that you were anti-feminist if you weren't participating in hookup culture. Somehow the idea that you couldn't be quote unquote chill, which is one of my least favorite phrases when it comes to dating and relationships, because if you're a woman or femme, chill basically just means I won't ask you any questions and I'm going to like hope that you want to be with me as much as I want to be with you. And that doesn't sit right with my spirit or my ancestors. Let me just tell you, neither one is happy. And I began to realize that like I had learned to shut myself off from having any emotional entanglements. And looking back, I feel like it was very detrimental in a lot of different ways. For instance, when someone did like me, I didn't know because I was so used to playing the games, which hookup culture is a game. Let's get that clear. And I'll go into that hopefully a little bit more in a little bit. But I was so used to playing the game of hookup culture, the game of I'm too chill to have any feelings for you. Yeah, I don't care. I don't want to stay here. Like, gross. I want to sleep in my own bed. I don't want to be here. So used to playing that and so used to having to shut myself off emotionally that when someone was interested, they were surprised by my very cold shoulder behavior. And I learned how to do that very early, because if you didn't, you got hurt, right? If you really had the feels, then you got hurt because they were just playing games. Men, for the most part, a lot of them, especially when they're young, have this idea that they have time and options. The idea is I'm young, I'm handsome, and I can have a good time. I don't have to settle down and find a wife. I don't have to settle down and find a girlfriend. There's way too many options for me to do that. However, at the same time, they don't realize that that whole culture, the whole idea of hooking up came out of a large amount of the divorce of the 70s and 80s, and it became acceptable, right? To get divorced became an acceptable thing, and now it's just a part of culture. When you hear someone's getting divorced, you're not like, oh my goodness. Like, you don't have that reaction anymore. When people get divorced, they get divorced. You're sad for them and it sucks, but it's not the way that it once was. Getting divorced used to have such a stigma attached to it. And I feel like there was this push, and I look at this through the lens of media because I consume an enormous amount of media, but I look at this through the lens of movies. If you watch movies from the 70s and 80s and then into the 90s, you watch this progression of change from romantic relationships in which there is a lot of romance done prior to sleeping with one another in the most carnal way possible. And then you start watching it change to men trying to find ways to unlock the keys to the kingdom. And what I mean by this is, like, it's not like that wasn't there before, right? But this becomes more pertinent when you're looking at how it was happening, because women they got divorced, they were ready for new relationships, and then they began to find that there were so many men who were just like eager to just hook up with them and then leave them. And so in defense of that, women started creating new rules, one of them being the 3-date rule. Now, for those of you that don't know, because you're young and hip and you are having a good time, the 3-date rule was something in which you decided that you weren't going to get carnal with someone until you'd been on 3 dates. The implication being that if they actually cared about you and wanted to spend time with you, they would continue to date you without receiving your carnal pleasures. And then, you would move forward. That's how you would know that they were actually interested in you and not your honeypot, right? But then men got wise to it, and rather than seek out women and femmes who wanted a hookup, they were more interested in the challenge. We became game, prey, if you will. They did not care that you were someone who wanted a relationship. They would pretend along with you to get past the 3-date rule, to put you down in their little black book of conquests. But in that quest, they created a large amount of bitter ass women who I grew up to idolize at one point. These women became embittered. It felt very pushed and rushed, and it felt like you could not find a way in which to just find someone who wanted to be in a relationship with you. You kept finding people who really just didn't care about you, what you wanted. And I felt like this is very important to say, because we're still seeing this in a lot of men today that don't care about what you want and would still rather seek out someone who truly wants love, affection, and a relationship just to sleep with them because it's a challenge. And when I say that that is really disgusting behavior,
I fucking mean it.
Stop doing that to people. You're making them bitter, because like there's generations and people my age who are also single or divorced who have lived through that and realized that like that's no way to live. Being embittered and angry only serves to hurt more people because, as we all know, hurt people hurt people. But when men were looking at women as conquests instead of people and challenges, it became a game. And this is where I feel like my experience in the whole thing really fucked me up for a long time, because the idea was that you were just playing this weird long game with someone. The hookup culture thing became very much a thing where you had to play along, right? Pretend you didn't really have feelings for them. You had to do weird things, like if somebody called you, you could not answer the first time they called, okay? Y'all remember this back in the early cell phone days. Like, someone would call you, and I shit you not, you would have to like not answer, right? And let them go to voicemail, and then wait between 2 and 3 hours before you returned the call. And then if you were to return the call but they were unavailable, you knew you had to answer the next time they called. And then when they called, you had to stare at the phone like some kind of maniac, waiting, like, because you couldn't answer immediately. So you're just like, and go. And then you had to answer breathlessly, like you were just doing something, like you just caught the phone, like, hello. You knew it was them. You knew it was them. You saved their number in your phone. You're answering the phone as breathless as possible, like you were just fucking running a marathon. And for what? For what? We played this bullshit game for what? Because the me of today, I'm going to answer the phone the second you call. I'm going to pick it up. I'm not going to wait for it to ring a very specific number of times so that I know, so that you can feel that I might be busy. I'm not going to answer the phone breathless unless I'm walking Bo, because listen, he really gets going and I'm not in shape. I'm not an in shape person. And in fact, I won't date you if you're one of those people who wants to go to the fucking gym, because I'm not going. But I'm not going to do all that anymore. But the way that you had to like play this weird long game was exhausting. Not only was it mentally exhausting, it was emotionally exhausting. You were trying to pretend that you weren't interested in someone that you were interested in for fear of being called clingy. You know what? Maybe I am. If me telling you that I like you a couple dates in means that you think that I am clingy and no longer want to date me, good. That means you're not the person for me. Because let me tell you something, baby, I'm not too much. I'm exactly enough for the person who I'm going to end up with. And I feel like that is the movement that is happening now. I feel like we are watching Gen Z start walking into this as well. Younger millennials and Gen Z are now at a stage where we're like, we're not going to take this anymore. Women and femmes are going, we don't want to play games. This is stupid. Because here's the thing that I realized playing all those bullshit games, I was breaking my own heart anyway. By me pretending I didn't feel the way that I felt about someone, I was hurting myself anyway, because when they didn't seem to care about me the way I cared about them, and I'm busy playing cool girl and trying not to be labeled negatively, I'm still getting hurt because like, I don't know if this person likes me. I don't know if they're just using me for my body or if they're actually interested in dating me. And because I was always too scared, I wouldn't ask and I wouldn't say what I needed. For those of you who've been here for a while, y'all know that I was dating a person that I referred to as New York. And this was honestly one of the most amazing things that's happened to me in my life, because for the first time in my adult life, I looked at someone and I was like,
no.
I'd always been a little bit like halfway in love with this person. I was halfway in love with them when I was playing cool girl in the early aughts. And when we met again and we're seeing each other long distance for a year, I was still there, right? And when I realized that I was making the same mistakes over and over again with them, where I just wouldn't say what I needed and finally did, I have never felt stronger and more assured of myself than I did in that moment. I, for the first time in my life, said, I know what I want. I don't care if you think that I'm clingy. I don't care if you think I'm too much. I just need to know that you don't feel the same. Because you not feeling the same tells me all I need to know. I don't need to waste any more time with you. And I feel like we're watching these new generations of women and femmes start battening down the hatches and being like, we're not playing games. We're not doing this thing anymore. You're not going to play the field while I sit at home knitting. I can't knit, but I do game. So you're not going to be out there playing the field while I sit at home playing Doom. You're not going to be dating other people and then I'm expected not to do the same. We're not going to have this weird secretive thing happening either, where neither one of us knows what the other is doing. We're either all in or we're not, because the emotional intimacy has been missing for generations at this point. The ability to be emotionally vulnerable with another person is missing. We have gotten so hardened and afraid as just generationally, and maybe it's just me, but we've gotten so afraid of getting emotionally hurt in a relationship that we've put up not even like regular walls, like these are like adamantium steel rooms that we are putting up to not let ourselves get hurt. We are so afraid that someone else could break our hearts that we have literally shut ourselves down. And this, I think, is disgusting. It's harmful to us because human beings, we want contact. Even someone as introverted and socially awkward and please don't touch me as me does like to have human contact. And that's why when I look back at younger me, and I think that younger me would have said like, no, I don't need emotional contact. And how I came to realize like, no, I am in fact demisexual, is I realized while I had a lot of one night stands, one of the things about them was that I say one night stands, but then like I will call them hookups because they started out as one night stands and then moved into hookup territory. And I could never figure out why initially the coitus was good, but then it just progressively got worse. And now I realize what it was. Initially, I had emotional feelings towards that person. I thought that we might date and we were being very romantic and sweet towards one another. You know, they would touch my face and caress me and I felt like this is nice, this is good. And that's why the first time was so great. Every time successfully after that wasn't as good because I realized that it was an act, that they did not feel romantically towards me. They wanted to use my body, but they didn't want to be with me. And so the carnal act was not good. Each time forward, each time we did it, I was like, this is worse. And I remember this because I'm going to call him by name. He probably doesn't remember me and he doesn't watch my channel. Theo was my first quote unquote love. And I remember the last time that we engaged. And he was yet another broken man who had a relationship that had broken his heart. And because he didn't want to have his heart broken again, he refused to engage in an actual relationship with me, even though all of his actions proved otherwise, that we were in fact in a relationship. He just didn't want to admit it. And I don't know what difference that made to him, but it made a lot of difference to me because I was like, listen, we're not going to do this. But I remember the last time that we were in flagrante delicto. And I remember that I was so not present in it that I was literally lying there while he's going to work thinking, well, when this is finished, I'm going to go to Target and I'm going to pick up that vacuum cleaner because I really need it. I'm also going to need to pick up this, and this. Like, it was sad. And now that I realize that I require emotional intimacy, I realized a lot of people do. Just doing that small sampling, that small poll, a lot of people require emotional connection to enjoy the time. Yes, I did that sign language and I am not sorry. Get over it. And it makes me realize that we have got to start breaking down these walls. We've got to be honest. And what that means is that we women and femmes have to be honest about what we want. But men, you have to stop treating women like conquests and challenges. If what she or they want is a relationship, stop. Stop messing with them. They have clearly outlined what they want. There's no reason for you to continue with this person. If you are looking at another human being as a challenge, if you are looking at them like that, if you are at this point deliberately harming someone else's emotional and physical being, you are a piece of shit of the highest order, and you deserve to only step on Legos. You deserve, when you are outside barefoot at any point in time, for stickers to cover your feet and have to pick them out individually. And every time you grab the sticker, it pokes you in your fingers and you have to try with your other fingers to grab it. And it just becomes a nightmare for you. You deserve that. You deserve, when you go through and you wash your car and make it look spick and span and fabulous, for a rainstorm to immediately take place where mud flies all over your car. You deserve to have the squirts at every interval possible. That's what you deserve, because when you are taking someone who has told you what they want and you have used that as a challenge to break their boundary, you are the worst kind of person. Truly you are. Women and femmes are out here trying to have true emotional connection with people, those of us who are doing that, and you are trying to break that. And for that, you suck. All the things I mentioned before. Also, your internet should often be spotty. Your Wi-Fi should hate you at every turn. When you are at a penultimate moment in your favorite game, movie, or any piece of media, that is when your Wi-Fi will fail you. I don't think it is okay for people to constantly cross boundaries. I think the days of the hookup culture is starting to die in a lot of ways. And I do worry about this for women and femmes. I'm about to take a dark turn, so prepare yourselves, because if I'm talking about love, I'm going down a dark road. I worry explicitly for women and femmes because I do worry that the toxic masculinity that cannot handle the fact that women and femmes are comfortable being alone, we're comfortable with our platonic friendships, does mean that there is a chance that there may be even more violence thrust upon us that we do not want. Obviously, we don't want any of it. But I am concerned about that, because the amount of women and femmes I'm seeing who are like, yeah, I'd rather be alone than be with somebody who doesn't want to treat me well. I'd rather be alone than be with somebody who wants to play games. It's getting higher, which means more and more of us are comfortable doing things like going on trips together and having it just be a good time. We women and femmes have known for a very long time, and especially as we've gotten older, have realized that like our platonic friendships are like our platonic relationships are so important to us and very fulfilling. The goddess did not invent toys for us to not know that. Okay, I'm just gonna say that the goddess did not invent toys for us to not know. Okay, so like I have some very fulfilling platonic friendships that with, by the way, all genders. Thank you. And because of that and technology, I am not in a position where I want to go out and date. In fact, I did try to get like every 6 months to a year, I'm like, all right, here we go. Let's see what's out there on these dating websites. And I go to these dating apps and then I'm like, oh, this is a nightmare. And typically within 3 days, I'm over it. And I delete them and I move on, right? And I realized after this last time doing it that I don't think I'm ever going to do it again unless I just need some fun, funny content. But honestly, I don't think I'm going to do it again because my situation with New York taught me that, one, I have the strength that even with somebody that I'm halfway in love with, I can still just be like, you're not going to give me what I want and what I need, and therefore I don't want to spend time with you. And I guess I'm going to leave on that note. Like, this was just a rambly, I feel like all of my love videos are just going to be rambly me chatting. And I hope that y'all enjoy this. If you do, if you made it all the way to the end, because I feel like this is a 30 some odd minute video, do me a favor, drop like, one of the flower emojis. I don't care which one, just drop one because I actually really love it when I see those in there because, side note, my ADHD ass never remembers that I told you to drop an emoji. And then I see them and I'm like, what's everybody dropping this for? So then I go back and I check the video and I'm like, oh, that's why. So, it's helping me to get over like watching myself or listening to myself in video form. All right, that is it. That is the video. I'm about to hop on my Patreon live stream, my Patreon members only. I'm so excited to do that. I have half of this wine left. It's going to be a good day. I don't have to work tomorrow. Y'all, it's just been a wonderful August. So I hope your August has been going well. Let me know how you feel about what I'm saying in the comments. I'd love to have a live stream about this. If you'd like for me to do a live stream about this, drop the ghost emoji. We'll talk about this like live time because I love talking to y'all live time. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor and give this video a big thumbs up so then that way the goddess algorithm can do what she does best, which is push me further down into the algorithm so that I can do what I'm getting a little drunk, whatever the fuck I want to. All right. That's it. And I do want to say, as usual, huge shout out to my patrons and spooky vase. Yeah. Without y'all, I truly would not be able to do a lot of the content that I just want to do, where I don't have to worry about whether or not it hits that viewpoint. And also you keep the bats in the belfry and the spiders firmly ensconced in their webs. For all of you who watch, subscribe, like, and share the video, I appreciate you as well. And as usual, as you know, it costs $0 to be kind. It's so good for your soul. I'm not asking you to get step time. I'm just asking you to be kind because it's free. And if you don't take care of your soul, I'm sure shit coming for yours because listen, fall is coming. That is my goth season. Destruction is nigh. XOXO. Gothic girl. Oh my goodness. Why are you being such a sweet angel bear? Let's take care of that first, don't we? I don't want any kisses, thank you. Following me on Instagram. I know the fly is here. As always, I love you so much. You're just such a good puppy. Partaking of hookup culture, hip-hop culture. It felt because you get too vigorous. Every time I do this, you get super vigorous about licking yourself, and it's really intense, bro. Just FYI, he's licking the back of his foot, not his butt. All right, moving on. I don't know why, and everything was like a dark and creepy.